Is a cruise right for you? We're going to answer that today here on Breezy Travels. Cruising isn't for everyone. The reality is it depends on what type of traveler you are. And before you commit to giving it a try, you should ask yourself these 5 questions. 1, are you comfortable giving up control? A cruise vacation is, vacation in easy mode. The cruise line is going to sell you a complete package of all your travel needs, including your room, your food, your entertainment, and it'll deliver almost every day a new and exotic location for you to explore. But the other side of that coin is you give up some of the control. You sign a contract when you get on board that vessel. And the reality is you may or may not make it to every port that's there. Weather or other adverse conditions can affect you from actually making it to those ports. So even though you signed up to go to some bucket list destination you've always wanted to go to, the reality is you may or may not make that. You give up flexibility. You're going to have limited time in the ports, and that ship has a schedule to keep, and it's going to keep it whether you're on it or not. That brings us to our second question. How important is spending time? I mean, really getting to know a particular city, a particular port, or a particular country. For most of us, if you're an American, you're traveling in the Caribbean. For most of us, the Caribbean is more about relaxation and fun, and sometimes the ship itself is the destination. But if you're going a little bit further away, maybe you're taking a Mediterranean cruise. Mediterranean cruises are really more about the culture and about the history, about the food. Maybe for some of you, you're taking an Alaskan cruise. That's more about the adventure. Here's the thing. When you're there, you don't have that much time. Now, let's use the Mediterranean cruises as an example. You're going to see some amazing cities. You may go and have the opportunity to see Barcelona. Maybe you're going to see Rome. Maybe even see Venice, Florence, some of the Greek Isles. Those are great, but you're not going to have the opportunity to spend enough time in those areas for you to really understand the culture or the city. When you look on your cruise itinerary, it may say that you have 12 hours in a certain port, and that may very well be true, but you may not be able to get off the boat when it first gets there to the port. There's travel time. In some cases, it may take an hour, hour and a half for you to get from the port to those cities there in the Mediterranean. And even though the ship says it leaves, let's say at 6 o'clock, well, that's when the ship leaves, but you have to be on board usually 30, 45 minutes beforehand. So you may not have as much time in those ports as you might like. Let me ask you a third question. How do you handle crowds? Now, there are some cruise lines that are out there that are luxury lines that have a very small amount of people on them. And if you can do that, we'd love to help you with that. But for most of us, you're going to be traveling on one of the mainline cruise lines. Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, MSC, Princess, pick one of those. Those are big ships. And when we say big ships, you may be on board a ship with 4, 5, even 6,000 people. Now, the great news about these big ships is, they're big and they tend to spread out people all around. There's all sorts of activities and different places to go. But with that being said, you're still going to have crowds. You're going to have crowds when you check in. You're going to have crowds when you go to the buffet. There's going to be crowds when you're going to some of the shows. There may be crowds when you're trying to get into certain venues, whether it's a comedy club or maybe they have a band that you really want to hear at one of the smaller venues. Even when you get into ports, trying to get into the ports, especially in some of these Caribbean islands now, when there are 4 or 5, in some cases 6 ships that pull into those ports, there are tens of thousands of people who are getting off in those areas. Now, there are ways around that, and that's where a good travel advisor can help you understand ways to get around some of those crowds, but you are going to deal with crowds. So how well do you handle crowds? Let me give you number 4. This is a great question. How important is knowing the cost of the vacation to you? A cruise is a great option if you want to know how much a vacation is going to cost, before the vacation, because you have to have it paid for in full before you go. And it can be a great value. But with that being said, there are other costs that you have to remember. If you're a first-time cruiser, maybe you've never cruised before, there are other costs you have to remember. If you're going to ports and there's something you really want to do, most of the time there's going to be some sort of cost associated with that. We call them excursions. You can either do them through the cruise line, or we always recommend doing them independently. You're going to have other costs that you may not realize. realize. Gratuities, tips that go to the amazing staff members on the cruises who are helping make your vacation wonderful. Specialty dining has gotten to be a very big thing over the last 10, 15, 20 years or so on cruise ships, where you don't just have to eat in the buffet or the main dining room, but now they have specialty dining options, which is elevated. The food is better. The service may be better. Those come with a cost. If you drink, if you like alcohol or certain drinks, those are typically not included in your cruise fare. You'll have to pay for those things as well. Insurance is another cost that you always have to remember. Again, these are all things that a really good travel agent, a good travel advisor can help you understand. And I will tell you that since COVID, there have been more and more add-ons. There's more nickel and dime, let's call it what it is, that the cruise lines are doing. So keep that in mind with that. Let me give you the last one, number 5. How well do you tolerate motion? You may have somebody say, you know what, the ships are so big, the ships are so stable today, you'll never even know that you're on a cruise ship. Well, the ships are big and the ships are stable, but they are moving through the ocean, which moves, and you are going to feel movement when you're on there. Now, not to say that it's going to be like you're in a hurricane or anything like that, but you are going to know that you're on a moving vessel, and some people are more adverse to those motions than others. And again, there's medications and things you can do to mitigate that, but how well do you tolerate motion? I will also tell you that when you cruise and where you cruise has an effect on that. If you're cruising in the Caribbean out of Florida in the winter months, the waters tend to be a little bit rougher. If you're cruising in October, November, August, those times in hurricane season in the Caribbean, don't be surprised if you go through. We have been through the very edges of hurricanes before. Everything's been great. We've been through tropical depressions, but just know you have to answer that question. How well will you tolerate motion? If you answer those 5 questions, this may help you make a decision of whether a cruise is great for you or not. This, again, is where a good travel advisor, like Breezy Travels, can help you make the most out of your vacation dollar. Let me ask you to do this. Let us know your thoughts. What are your pros? What are your cons? What questions would you ask for the first-time cruiser? And as always, if we can help you in any way, would you do me a favor? Would you smash that like button? Would you follow? Would you subscribe our page? We would love to give you more information, not just about cruises, but about vacations and helping you make the very best of all of your holiday needs. Listen, if we can ever help you, reach out to us, because as we always say, we try to make it easy. Get breezy. We'll see you soon.